Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now, let's give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Jack W. Ow!
Good evening. My name is Jack Williams, and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, my God. Okay. Let's see. I wrecked 4 cars, went to jail 3 times, and went to 2 hospitals. So I belong here. And you know what? Okay. You know what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous is, you wreck cars, you go to jail, you go to the hospital, you cheat on your wife, and then they ask you to speak. I mean, it's just insanity what goes on around here. But anyway, what I want to say is that I love to drink alcohol. I mean, I'm telling you, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Taking that drink. I'm telling you, I don't know if you remember what it was like when it worked, but it gave me a sense of well-being, a sense of euphoria, a sense that the world was the greatest place to live in. And then it became the problem. And I spent the last 5 years of my drinking trying to recapture the good old days by drinking more and more and more, and it got further and further away. And I used to have this friend. He's not with us anymore. His name was Tris. And he used to tell me that his recovery started with his first drink. And I said, yeah, that's it. Because also, like when Bill Wilson and Carl Jung used to write letters back and forth, Carl Jung wrote a letter to Bill Wilson, and he said that the craving for alcohol is the lowest level of craving for union with God that there is. And he says the Latin word for alcohol is spiritus. And the Latin word for religious experience is spiritus. It's the same word. And so I began to understand why Alcoholics, and why I told you when I took my cake how I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. And I began to understand the reason why. It's because all of that time I was drinking and it was working. It was akin to having a spiritual experience. And it was, but it was like a false experience. It was like getting kicked out of the wedding feast, because you don't have the right clothes on, It showed me the possibilities drinking did. And I told you that I also got sober. I finally got sober after the second hospital experience, and I was in St. John's, and what happened there was the psychological. See, I'd been I had 3 DUIs, and I had another hospital experience, and they were talking to me about alcoholism. They were saying the words, but they weren't. I wasn't getting it. It was all about you guys. You were the alcoholics. I just liked the taste of alcohol too much. But in St. John's, I got it. I got it. And the one thing that opened my mind about it was, and the phrase that I have lived on all these years, is that I don't take a drink no matter what comes down. And I remember when they first said it, we were sitting in one of those little rap groups. I don't know all of you people who come from rehab centers, but they have these little groups and you talk about stuff. And they said, you don't take a drink no matter what. And I said, do you mean if I am suicidally depressed for the rest of my life without alcohol, you don't take a drink no matter what? And they said, yep, that falls under the no matter what category. You know? And so a little bit about me, though. I happen to be this dentist in Malibu. I drove a long way, like they say in the book, to get here, you know. And what happened was I told everybody in my office that I'm going to Acapulco for 3 weeks. And I went to St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica. And my first AA meeting, in those days, the alcohol ward was in the psychiatric section across the street in the lockup ward, and the AA meeting was on the 7th floor of 7 North, which has since been torn down. But so we go to our first AA meeting, and we walk out of the locked ward with our gowns on and our wristbands on, and we walk across the street in a straight line down the hall. And coming down the hall the other way is the orthopedic surgeon who I share the office with. And I'm supposed to be in Acapulco. And we walked down the aisle, and he just looked into my eyes, and I looked into his, and there was not a word said. And we just passed. And we went up to the room. And the reason I bring that up is because I had one of my first lessons early on. When I got out of the hospital, I went back to my practice here on Malibu Road, and there were 3 doctors, and he was one of them, and me, and they were angry. They were very pissed. This was not funny. This is not funny. I'm in there for drugs and alcohol, and they're referring me patients. I'm loaded drilling on people. They were not real happy. They were not real happy. So they decided they are going to take me to lunch, and they are going to straighten me out, I guess. I don't know what they were going to... Anyway, what they told me was, or what I decided to do was, after talking to my sponsor and the people in AA, is that I had no other chance but to come clean and be honest. And this was my first step into the abyss of doing something that I didn't think would work. Because, I always did a soft shoe. So when they sat down, I told them where I had been and what I had done, and that I had now joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I was now sober a month, and that I intended to stay sober no matter what. And so they backed off, and they said, okay, we're going to watch you and see what happens. See what happens to you. And that was 25 years ago, And so as that was one of the first things that happened. And then China, I love what she said tonight, and about I come to AA and I got all these problems. That's what I did. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started going to meetings, and all I did was whine and moan and whine and moan until... That's why you got to go to a lot of meetings, because what happens if you go to a lot of meetings is you start to hear yourself, and it sounds like a broken record. It does. It absolutely sounds like a broken record. And so after about 6 months of hearing myself, I started to look a little bit outside of myself and see what's going on out here in these meetings. And what I saw were a bunch of people laughing, making mistakes, getting up and dusting themselves off and going on with their lives and not whining about it. And I began to see that, and I started to, this desire in me started to grow that I want that. I want to be like that. I want to be unafraid to make mistakes. I want to, who was it? Mike said, get out there and you just got to live. Just got to get out there and live and take chances. See, I always played everything close to the vest. Don't make a mistake. Be perfect. And so I got a sponsor, and I got this sponsor who was a maniac. But I love this guy, and he's still my sponsor 25 years later. And the thing about Artie that I loved so much was he was a man who was fearless, and I was fearful. And I asked Artie to be my sponsor, and we started to work together. And one of his first lessons was, I remember coming to him and saying, Artie, I got a lot of problems. My practice is just about to go in the toilet. My marriage is not good. And I think that we ought to correct these situations before we do some steps. Because, let's get the crisis over with, and then we'll do steps. And Artie said, okay, lesson number one. Lesson number one is, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has nothing to do with logic and reason. What you said, Jack, sounds very logical and very reasonable. He said, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has to do with unrelated action. You take unrelated action, quote, do the steps, and you have an experience happen to you that changes your personality so that you can start to become the person that you were supposed to be in the first place before you started wiping your head out with drugs and alcohol. That was lesson number one. So I started, okay, Artie, all right, you say so, I'll do it. So I started doing these steps, and me wanting to do everything perfect and thinking I don't want to be a hypocrite, I said to him that, Artie, I got trouble with God, and I've got trouble with prayer and meditation, and I've got trouble with the spiritual life here. I mean, come on. I come from drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and you're telling me to get spiritual here. And he said, lesson number two. These steps are designed so you do not have to believe a freaking word of what they say. All you got to do is do them. That's it. You don't have to believe them. Just do them. Be the biggest hypocrite in the world. Just go out and do some steps. And what Artie did for me there was he gave me license to take a risk, take a chance, get out and do some stuff. And that's how I got started on this road. And I'll never forget the first time, I got so many stories over these years, but there was the first amends. Actually, this was the 10th step, though. This was wreckage of my present. What happened was I was a dentist, and my practice wasn't doing well, so I'm working in East L.A. in this big clinic, and it's a huge clinic, and things are going on. There's 9 hygienists, and, all people all over the place. And I worked till late at night, 9, 9:30, 10 at night, 2 nights a week. So this one night I'm done, and I'm tired, and I'm backing out of the parking lot, and I back into and I smash a door. Somebody's parked car. I get out, I look at it. It's my dental assistant's car, but I look around. It's dark, and nobody's in the parking lot. So the old me gets in the car and drives home. Doesn't say a word, doesn't do anything. But once you've got the Alcoholics Anonymous disease, you're screwed. I'm telling you, you're just screwed. There was the old me saying, well, they didn't see me. She's got insurance. And the new me saying, are you a member of this club or what? Are you going to do it half-ass or are you going to do it all the way? They tell you got to come clean. You got to be honest. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I went back the next day. I went to work. I get in the discussion about who hit the car. I wonder who it could have been. I mean, You know, that's another lesson. Another lesson is always make your amends as soon as possible, because the hole gets deeper. It gets so deep you won't believe it. So, you know, after a couple of days of that, and I can't sleep, I can't even hardly function. I'm such a cheat and a liar, and I can't take my medicine. So I got to go in there and make an amends. And I go in there and I make this amends. And this is not one of those amends where everybody kisses the hem of your garment and says, "Oh, you're so honest." This is an amends where they look at you like you are some sort of a freak from another planet. However, I want to tell you that I got the reward. I got it. No matter, they looked at me like I was insane, and it did hurt. I felt so foolish and stupid. But that night, I'm driving home in my convertible, the stars are out, and I'm free. I started sleeping. I mean, the program actually works. I mean, stuff that, you see, I learned stuff in the world before I got here about collect stuff for yourself. Don't give anything away. Especially don't put your personal self at risk by telling people you hit the car. And Alcoholics Anonymous says no. Smash your ego. Strip it. And go out and be honest. And don't live a lie anymore. And freedom will occur in your life. And that is a spiritual truth that is unchangeable. It never changes. It's been here since eternity, and it'll be here for all eternity. Those kind of spiritual truths, they're the invisible things that run this world that I see, like China was saying, you know, that her perceptions, you know, I got sick perceptions. There's an invisible world out there that is free. And what else happened? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I used to sit in meetings, and people would say, the day's going to come when you'll have no defense for the first drink. And the little voice in me would say, oh, you got to be kidding me. From what happened to me and from where I came from, that day is never going to happen. Never. It will not happen to me. So after about a year of sobriety, into my office walks a guy named Woody, who we used to party together is what we used to do. And he had been in Mexico for the last year, the year I got sober, while I'm getting sober. And he's back from Mexico, and he is ready to see me and ready to party. And he's got a present of a bag of cocaine for me. And he hands it over to me, and I don't say a word, not one word about who I am and where I've been. And I took that bag, I went back into the bathroom, shut the door and locked it, took out the straw, and my next thought in my head was, the day's going to come when you'll have no defense for the first drink. And, you know, you can't just read that once in the book. You got to go to 1,000 meetings and hear it before it becomes part of my consciousness. You know, if I had went to one meeting and heard it, it never would have come up out of me like that. It just wouldn't have happened. You know? And that's why normal people come up to me and say, you still go to those meetings? You know? Damn, I got to. I've got to hear the stuff over and over again. And you know, meetings are like taking showers, you know. You get clean after the shower, and you don't say, that's it, I don't need to shower anymore, right? You got to do it the next day. Otherwise, you start to stink. My thinking stinks, you know. So I started along, and I grew up in AA, and I went from a newcomer to a elder statesman to a bleeding deacon to a guy who was sitting in the back of the meetings, coming in just about when the meeting would start, and leaving right at the end. because I looked around the meetings, and you know, the ranks of my class were thinning. There was nobody. I mean, there were still a few, like the Roys and the Vinnies and the Joes and the Dans and stuff, but I mean, I came in with a lot of people. We were tight for 5 years, and now where are they? And I'm looking around, and I get the blues, and I go, shit, my time's past. And I started to drift away, about the 10 through 15, and start to feel not a part of, and because I'd see the newer people, the 4 and 5 years, they're running out down the street like I used to do, grabbing drunks off of Point Doom bar stools, and you know, the Doom Club, and I used to do all of that, but I was watching them do it, and I was drifting. And one night in a meeting, I heard a guy say, "You get as much out of AA as you put into it." And you know, they probably said that all over the world all the time. But I heard it that night, and something inside of me went, yeah, ain't that the truth? And I haven't been putting anything in anymore. And so I started again. I started going out with people for coffee. I started coming early and taking a commitment and doing all those dumb little things they tell you to do that an intelligent man should know better. You know, but you know what happened? Those chairs that emptied with those people that I thought were so close to me, that were part of my gang, so to speak, filled up with a whole bunch of new people who I loved just as dearly as those guys who came before. And so, you know, if you're new, I just want to say to you that I know you're like me and you're backing away from hell, but what you don't realize is that you've backed into heaven. That's it. That's the case. So stick around long enough to see the sense of humor and the sense of wonder of sobriety. It's just the most marvelous spiritual rock and foundation. It'll get you through anything. Life is good, God is good, and sobriety is good, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jack.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the The drone has been established, it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.